For rejecting my birth mother after she tried to claim me at my wedding? My name is Ashley Carter, and I grew up believing I had the perfect family. We weren't wealthy at first, but we were happy. It was just Mom, Dad, and me, living in a modest little house on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. My dad, Jack Carter, was the hardest working man I have ever known. He built his logistics company from scratch, starting with just 2 used semis and slowly turning it into a respectable business. Sometimes he would come home covered in grease because in the early years, he insisted on doing the truck maintenance himself. My mom, Brenda, worked as a restaurant manager. She was good at her job, although she complained all the time. "Someday I just want to be a stay-at-home mom, Jack," she would say during dinner, pushing the food around her plate. "These long nights are killing me." Dad would just smile, take her hand, and promise that she could quit soon, and he kept his promise. When I was 9 years old, the business really took off. Dad landed several large contracts, and suddenly we were moving to a 2-story house in a nice suburban planned community. For the first time, I had my own room. It was huge and bright, with windows overlooking the backyard. I went crazy with the decoration. I painted the walls light lilac, hung fairy lights everywhere, and asked Dad for a giant bookshelf for my books. He built it with his own hands. He spent a whole weekend in the garage, swearing under his breath when he thought I wasn't listening, but with a proud smile when he finally installed it in my room. Shortly after the move, Mom quit her job, just like she had always wanted. But instead of taking care of the house as she had talked about so much, she was almost never there. It was always lunch with her friends, a quick shopping trip to the mall, or her salon appointment running late. Dad didn't seem to mind. He was too busy with the company, although he always made time for me. Sundays were sacred. We always went out for ice cream, just the two of us. And he would listen carefully to all my stories about school and my friends, as if they were the most important thing in the world. The last time we had ice cream together was shortly before my 11th birthday. It was a very clear spring day, and Dad was telling me that one of his drivers had called in sick. "I'm going to have to make that run myself," he said, finishing his cone. "Like the old days. Can I go with you?" I asked, excited by the idea of a road trip with him. He laughed and ruffled my hair. "Not this time, princess. It's just a short overnight trip. I'll be back before you know it." That night I hugged him tighter than usual before going to sleep. "I love you, Dad," I told him, not knowing it would be the last time I would say those words to him. The next morning he left before dawn. Mom was still asleep, so Linda, our housekeeper, made him coffee and packed some food for the road. I heard the truck's engine start and then fade away down the quiet street. That was the last time I saw my father alive. The call came at 3:47 in the morning. I know because I was awake with a weird feeling in my stomach. I heard Mom scream from her bedroom, followed by the sound of something breaking, probably the bedside lamp. The following hours are a blur in my memory. I remember 2 state troopers in the living room, Linda hugging me tightly while Mom paced back and forth talking on the phone. Words like multi-vehicle pileup, interstate, and died on impact floated around me like dark shadows. Dad's truck had been involved in a massive collision after another vehicle crossed the median. They said he didn't suffer. As if that helped anything, nothing made it better. Nothing could bring my dad back. The funeral is also a fog in my head. I remember the closed casket and me not believing he was inside there. Mom made a whole spectacle, crying loudly and nearly throwing herself on the casket. Now, looking back, I see the theatrical show that it all was. But at 11 years old, I thought that was how adults grieved. At the funeral, I met Uncle Robert and Aunt Patty for the first time. They were almost strangers, but Uncle Robert had the same eyes as my dad, with those little wrinkles at the corners when he tried to smile despite the tears. "Ashley," he said, kneeling down to my level, "I'm your dad's brother. I'm so sorry we have to meet like this." "Then why had I never seen you before?" I asked directly, as only children can be. A shadow crossed his face. "Your dad and I had a falling out many years ago, but none of that matters now. I had to come say goodbye to my little brother." After the funeral, Mom's grief evaporated like morning dew. Within a few weeks, she was already meeting with Dad's lawyers, taking control of the company and acting as if she knew anything about logistics. She started using words like restructuring and modernization, but it was obvious she was just improvising. I spent most of my time with Linda, who shook her head sadly every time Mom arrived loaded with bags from expensive stores. "Your mom is spending money as if it grows on trees," she muttered one day while making my lunch. "And those poor drivers have had their paychecks delayed for weeks." She was right. Dad's employees started quitting one after another. Many had worked with him from the beginning. I remembered their names, their faces, the little keychains they brought me from their routes. Now they were leaving, unable to support their families on empty promises. 6 months after Dad's death, Mom sold what was left of the company's assets for pennies on the dollar. She acted as if she had made a brilliant move, but everyone knew the truth. She had driven my father's life's work straight into the ground. After the sale, Mom was hardly home. She was always out somewhere. I spent most of my time with Linda. She started teaching me some basic Spanish, saying it would be useful someday, and told me stories about her hometown from when she was young. After school, I would go straight to the library. It was better than returning to an empty house. Mom would show up late at night, sometimes smelling of wine, barely aware of my existence. "Oh, you're still awake," she would say, as if surprised to see me in my own house. Then she would lock herself in her bedroom and I wouldn't see her again until the next day. I was doing homework in the kitchen when the door burst open. Mom walked in laughing like a teenager. She wasn't alone. "Ashley, sweetie," she called out with a voice full of fake enthusiasm. "Come meet Kevin." Kevin was tall and wore an expensive suit that somehow looked cheap. His smile didn't reach his eyes when he looked at me. "Ashley," Mom said, clinging to his arm as if he were a life preserver. "We got married last weekend. He's your new dad. We're going to be a real family again." "I already had a real family," I replied, my voice trembling. "I already have a dad." Kevin's smile vanished. "Listen to me closely, young lady," he said in a stern tone. "Your mom and I are married. You need to accept that and show some respect." "You're not my dad," I spat. "You'll never be my dad. See what I'm telling you?" Kevin commented, turning to Mom. "She's a difficult kid. She needs discipline." Kevin's arrival was just the beginning. In less than a week, his mom Carol, his sister Denise, and her 12-year-old daughter Megan had moved in with us. They took over the house like an invading army, moved the furniture around, packed away things Dad and Mom had chosen together, and hung their own pictures. Mom didn't seem bothered. She and Denise immediately became best friends. They spent hours shopping and gossiping. Carol took over the kitchen. She complained about Linda's cooking until Mom finally fired her. That day I lost the only person left who still cared about me in that house. The final blow came a couple of weeks later. I came back from school and found Megan in my room. My room, the one Dad had painted with me, the one with lilac walls, fairy lights, and the bookshelf he had built. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Aunt Brenda said this room is for me," Megan replied with a mocking smile. "It's bigger than the guest room and I need space for my things." "Get out of here," I yelled. "This is my room." She stopped mocking and threw my books off the shelf. "Your mom says you're moving to the small room down the hall." I lost control. We got into a serious argument that turned physical, and we fell to the floor tangled in a mess of arms and legs. We were both screaming. Kevin and Mom came running and pulled us apart. "Ashley," Mom shrieked. "How dare you? Go to your new room right now." "No," I yelled with tears in my eyes. "This is my room. Dad gave it to me." Kevin grabbed my arm tightly. "Your dad is gone," he said through clenched teeth. "This is my house now and you will do as I say." They confined me to the small guest room for 2 days. They only let me out to go to the bathroom and to school. My books and my things were piled in boxes in a corner. The bookshelf Dad had built ended up in the trash pile for pickup day. Through the wall, I could hear Megan playing music in what had been my room and Mom laughing with Denise on the first floor, as if nothing had happened. A few weeks after the room incident, I was going to the bathroom late at night when I heard voices downstairs. I stopped at the top of the stairs, hidden in the shadows. "The girl is getting more difficult every day," Kevin was saying. "She's disrupting our family's harmony. Have you thought about finding her another home?" My blood ran cold. "Another home? You mean putting her up for adoption?" Mom asked, and my blood ran even colder. She said it in a thoughtful tone, as if considering what to cook for dinner. It could work. She's still young. It would be for the best, Denise added. Megan is scared of her after that incident. And to be honest, Ashley just doesn't fit in here. I ran to my room, threw myself on the bed, and buried my face in the pillow. I repeated to myself over and over that they couldn't be serious, that Mom would never do something like that it was just a meaningless conversation. I pushed those words to the back of my mind and convinced myself that nothing would happen. 2 months later, my 13th birthday arrived. I wasn't expecting much. My birthdays had barely been acknowledged since Dad died. To my surprise, Uncle Robert and Aunt Patty came to the house. "Happy birthday, Ashley," he said, hugging me tightly. His eyes narrowed when he saw Kevin walk down the hall pretending not to see us. Mom threw together a quick dinner. She was probably embarrassed that Dad's brother might judge her. The tension at that table was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Amidst the silence, Mom cleared her throat. "Robert, Patty, I'm glad you're here," she said. "There's something I need to discuss with you." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "Ashley isn't happy here," she continued without looking at me. "And frankly, we aren't happy either. She doesn't fit into our new family dynamic. I've decided to place her for adoption." The words hit me like a punch. The conversation I had overheard that night hadn't been just talk. Mom had made up her mind. "I thought maybe you two could take her," she continued in a casual voice, as if talking about the weather. "Since you don't have children, you might want to. And if not, I'll start the process with an agency." The room spun. I had trouble breathing. On my birthday, she was literally giving me away. Uncle Robert's chair flew backward with such force that it fell to the floor. "We'll take her," he thundered, red with fury. "Brenda, you are the most despicable person I have ever met." "How dare you?" Kevin started to say, standing up. But a single look from Robert made him sit back down. "Patty," my uncle said, his voice softer now. "Help Ashley pack her bags. We're leaving right now." Aunt Patty put an arm around my uncontrollably shaking shoulders and took me upstairs. We packed at lightning speed, throwing my clothes and the few remaining things into bags. I was crying so hard I could barely see. "Everything is going to be all right, sweetie," she whispered. "You're with us now." I walked out of that house without looking back. Mom didn't try to stop me. She didn't try to say goodbye. The last thing I heard before my uncle closed the car door was Megan's voice, asking if she could have my new room now, too. The transition wasn't easy at first. I would wake up in my new room in Uncle Robert and Aunt Patty's house, and for a second I wouldn't know where I was. Then I would smell my aunt's coffee and bacon coming up from the kitchen and remember I was home. In my real home. The legal process moved quickly. Mom signed away her parental rights without hesitation. That hurt at first, but over time it felt like a blessing. As the months passed, I stopped calling them uncle and aunt. They became my parents. Robert and Patty became my parents on paper, making official what was already true in my heart. "Ashley," my new dad said one day while we were having breakfast, "we enrolled you in a new school, Riverside High. It's a better school district and we think you're going to like it." I did like it. Without the constant weight of my old life, I started to excel in my classes. My teachers noticed and my new parents did too. They went to everything. Every school play, every awards ceremony, every parent-teacher conference. When I joined the debate team, they sat through every competition proud even when I lost. They encouraged me to try new things. Piano lessons, summer science camps, volunteering at an animal shelter. They didn't just support me with money, they were present. The change was enormous. The pain of my biological mother's abandonment began to fade. It was slowly replaced by the warm certainty of being truly loved. I stopped thinking about her. I stopped wondering if she ever thought about me. My new life was too full for those old wounds to dictate my feelings. My high school graduation arrived. I had the loudest cheering section in the audience. Not only were Robert and Patty there, but also their extended family, who had welcomed me as one of their own. "We have something to tell you," Patty said at the celebration dinner. "Since the day you came to us, we've been putting money into a college fund for you." They had saved enough to send me to almost any university. I chose a top-tier state university with a great business school. I wanted to study something that would allow me to manage money well, theirs and mine. College was incredible. I dedicated myself completely to my studies, determined to make them proud. In my junior year, I landed an internship at a major investment firm. It was then that Patty mentioned, almost in passing, that she had run into my biological mother at the grocery store. "She has a son now," she said, looking at me carefully. "They still live in that house, the one that belonged to your dad, with Kevin and his family." I just nodded. I was surprised to feel nothing more than distant curiosity. That life felt like someone else's story, something that had happened to another girl. Upon graduating, I got a job in the investment division of a large bank. My starting salary left me speechless. It was more money than I had ever imagined making right out of college. The day I received my first paycheck, I went straight to a jewelry store. Dad had been wearing the same worn-out watch for years, and Mom always stared at a pearl necklace in the window of a local shop. When I gave them the gifts, Mom burst into tears, and Dad's hand trembled as he put on the new watch. "You shouldn't spend your money on us," he muttered. "Who else would I spend it on?" I replied, hugging them. "You're my parents. You're the ones who made all this possible." The next 6 years flew by. I moved up at the bank, gaining more and more responsibility, until I ended up leading my own team. Every achievement felt sweeter because I could share it with them, whom I now called Mom and Dad without hesitation. The first thing I bought was a condo, a beautiful 2-bedroom place in a quiet part of the city. Mom helped me with the decorations, and Dad reviewed every mortgage paper before I signed anything. Then I met Michael. After a year of dating, he proposed to me during a weekend trip to the coast. I said yes before he could finish his sentence. Mom cried when we told them. Dad hugged Michael tightly and said, "Welcome to the family, son." We dove headfirst into the preparations. Mom and I spent weekends looking at possible venues and tasting cakes, while Dad and Michael became friends putting together budget spreadsheets and coordinating vendors. Then the Facebook message arrived. "Ashley, sweetie," it read. "I heard about your upcoming wedding. I know it's been a long time, but I am still your mother. I have changed and I want to fix things. Please let me be a part of your special day. I miss you so much." My hand trembled as I read. I called Mom immediately. "I saw Brenda the other day," Patty said quietly when I told her about the message. "At the supermarket. She didn't ask about you once. But when I mentioned how well you are doing, how you are building a career and getting married, her eyes lit up in a way I didn't like." She paused. "There's more. I heard Kevin's niece, Megan, had a baby a few years ago. She married some guy who can't hold a job and they moved back into the house with him. I was told that things are really tense over there. Brenda was complaining loudly about money problems. They said they are drowning in debt." I felt a cold knot in my stomach, so that was why she had suddenly appeared. She needed something. Money or a successful daughter to show off. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as the memories flooded back. The room she took from me, the birthday when she gave me away, the years of silence when she had 1,000 chances to look for me and didn't. Finally I wrote, "Brenda, I will be clear. You are no longer my mother. You gave up that right when you signed away your parental rights on my 13th birthday. I have parents and they love me unconditionally, something you never knew how to do. I don't want you at my wedding. And I don't want you in my life. Do not contact me again." I hit send, then blocked her immediately. I was no longer afraid. This time my hands were not trembling. My mind felt clear, as if I had lifted a weight I had been carrying for years. My wedding day dawned perfect and clear. Michael's parents had rented a beautiful historic manor with massive gardens for the ceremony. I was in the bridal suite with Mom, putting the final touches on my makeup, when there was a knock at the door. "Miss Carter," said one of the security guards. "This is a bit awkward. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation at the main gate. There are some people who insist they know you. A man, a woman, and a young boy." My heart sank. I knew immediately who they were. "I'll handle it," I said, getting up carefully so as not to step on my own dress. "Ashley, you don't have to," Mom started to say. "Yes, I do," I replied. "It's the last time." I walked toward the main gate, my heels clicking on the cobblestone path. And there they were, Brenda, Kevin, and a teenager who must be my half-brother, though he had the same entitled look as Megan. "Ashley," Brenda yelled upon seeing me, grabbing the iron bars of the gate. "How could you not invite your own mother to your wedding? Let us in right now." I took a few seconds to really look at her. She had aged poorly. Her designer clothes were clearly from past seasons. Her makeup was too heavy. Her hair was crying out for a new dye job. Kevin looked thinner, more worn out. His formerly expensive suit now just looked old. "Kevin should be the one to walk you down the aisle," Brenda continued in a shrill voice. "He's your father." I laughed. A genuine deep laugh. "My father," I repeated. "The man who helped you get rid of your own daughter and took away my home." "We're family," Brenda insisted, her voice breaking. "You can't pretend we don't exist. Look at how you're living with this fancy wedding, your great job, your expensive clothes. Meanwhile, we're barely making ends meet. We are drowning in debt, and you're here playing princess." There it was. The real reason for her dramatic appearance. "I'm not playing at anything," I said coldly. "I worked for everything I have. And let's get something straight. You are not my family. You gave up that place years ago. My parents are inside that house. They raised me, they supported me, they loved me unconditionally. We need your help," Brenda practically spat. "After everything we did for you." "Everything you did for me," I interrupted. "Like when you took my room from me, when you threw my dad's memories in the trash, when you gave me away as if I were a piece of old furniture. That is what you did." I turned to the guards. "These people are strangers to me," I said. "They are trespassing at a private event. Please escort them off the property. They are not welcome." "You can't do this," Brenda shrieked as the guard stepped forward. "I am your mother." "No," I replied without raising my voice. "You're just the woman who gave birth to me, and that is not the same thing." I turned my back on them, left their screams behind me, and walked back up the path with my head held high. When I returned to the bridal suite, Mom was waiting for me with a worried expression. "Are you okay, sweetie?" she asked. I took a deep breath. I smiled. "You know what?" I said. "I have never felt better. That chapter is completely closed." Someone knocked on the door and Dad poked his head in. "Ready, princess?" he asked. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time, adjusting my veil. The woman staring back at me was no longer that scared 13-year-old girl. She was a strong, successful, and loved adult. "Ready," I replied, taking Dad's arm. The music started to play as we approached the garden where the altar was. I saw Michael waiting for me with a huge smile and his eyes full of tears. The guests stood up and turned toward us. It was exactly as it should be. The man who had taught me to drive, who helped me with my college applications, who showed me every day what a father's love is, was the one walking me down the aisle. The ceremony was perfect. Michael and I exchanged vows under a blue sky, surrounded by flowers and by the people who truly loved us. When he kissed me for the first time as his wife, the guests erupted in applause. The party went on until late. Dad gave a speech that made everyone cry, and then laugh with embarrassing stories from my college years. Mom danced with Michael while I danced with Dad. I couldn't stop smiling. That was 6 months ago. Michael and I just got back from our honeymoon in Greece, and life has settled into a wonderful new normal. Sometimes people ask me about my real parents. I answer them without hesitation that my real parents are the ones who chose me, who took care of me, who made me the person I am. I don't know what happened to Brenda and her family after the wedding. To be honest, I don't care. I heard a rumor that they had to sell the house that had belonged to my dad. That is no longer my problem. That part of my life is over. My story is not that of an abandoned girl. It is the story of someone who found her true family, the one that loves you not out of obligation, but out of choice. It is the story of choosing happiness over resentment, of leaving grudges behind, and of walking forward instead of looking back. My name is Ashley Carter, and I couldn't be happier with this outcome, happier with the life I have. Every morning I wake up next to a man who loves me completely, and every Sunday we have dinner with the parents who chose me and never let me go. Comment. Sometimes the hardest chapters in our lives are often the ones that teach us the true meaning of family. Setting firm boundaries with people who hurt you is not an act of cruelty. but a necessary step toward your own healing. You have the absolute right to walk away from toxic environments and choose peace over resentment. True family is defined by the people who show up for you, respect you, and love you without conditions. Letting go of past grudges allows you to make room for the beautiful future you truly deserve. Your worth is never determined by those who fail to see your value or abandon their responsibilities. I want you to remember that you hold the pen to write the rest of your story. Surround yourself with kindness, and do not be afraid to protect your own happiness. I hope this message brings you comfort and inspires you to embrace the people who truly choose you every single day. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.